Hey, what's going on, guys? I want to welcome you back to the hashtag Clockedin podcast with Jordan Edwards, myself, where we sit down with leaders, thinkers, and doers who inspire us to reach higher and live fuller. Today, I have the honor of being joined with Wynn Claybaugh. He's the co-founder and the dean of the Paul Mitchell Schools, and he's nationally recognized author, speaker, and philanthropist. Wynn is the author of Be Nice or Else and the creator of the Masters podcast series, where he interviews some of the top voices in beauty, business, and leadership. Beyond his work in education, Wynn has raised 20 over 26 million dollars for charity and earned recognition across the country for his impact on both humanitarian causes and the next generation of leaders. This conversation is going to be about leadership, kindness, and creating legacy that's bigger than yourself. So let's dive in. Win, I'm so grateful to have you here. It's an incredible honor, and I want to ask you, how did you get involved in hairdressing schools? And you don't you how did you get involved in that?
Okay, well, I know that you're staring at my bald head right now, thinking, "Why is this guy in the hair business?" I didn't always look like this. It's not like I looked like this in kindergarten. Come on, it happens.
Absolutely.
It'll happen to you one day, Jordan, and I'll help you embrace it. And
You're gonna be my first call when I go bald. You'll be my first call. How do
no,
we handle this?
it's all good. Yeah, actually, I'm not a hairdresser. I've never been a hairdresser. I started my company 40 years ago. You probably weren't even born yet, Jordan. How old are you?
No. 29.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so I opened up a salon, my first salon 40 years ago, and then I quickly got into the school side of it because in interviewing people to come and work in my salons, I found people that after spending a year in school were not at all ready to compete and work in the salon business, and so I thought that the best way to train them would be to train them myself. So
Oh
I
wow.
quickly got into the school business and expanded that. And then in the year 2000, I became partners with John Paul DeJoria. So he's that guy that you see in the Paul Mitchell TV commercials, the guy with the ponytail. He also uh, created and owned and then sold Patron Tequila.
Yeah.
Some people might say that they like Patron better than they like Paul Mitchell shampoo, but there
They're
are
both fun.
meetings for those people.
Yeah.
Um, and he and I became partners and started the Paul Mitchell School brand of schools. Our goal initially was to open up 7 locations. There's actually even a video with me with hair, by the way. I'll send this to you, Jordan. Maybe you can drop this clip in there. But it's a video of him introducing me onto the stage, and then I come onto the stage and make the big announcement that we're going to open up 7 schools. That's our big goal, 7 schools. And then
Yeah.
now we're at 110. So there you go.
Oh wow. Wow, that's absolutely incredible. And for you, how was that pivot moment? Because I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs who are like, you got to be bought into what you're doing. How do you think about changing ideas like that?
Uh, for me, it's all about. See, some people say, "Well, I'll believe it when I see it," and I think that that's backwards. People now are asking me, "Gosh, when 40 years ago, did you ever imagine that one day you would have over 100 schools and thousands of students? Back then, did you ever imagine that that would happen?" And my answer is always yes. Of course I did. Because again, people say, "I'll believe it when I see it," and I think that that's backwards. You'll see it after you first believe it. So
Yeah.
I always had this deep belief system, and I surrounded myself with mentors and friends, and I had wonderful parents who also believed that dream along with me. Because I'm sure that there's some entrepreneurs who are listening to this who are not surrounded by the right people. There's a lot of naysayers out there, and not only that, but then they dive into those naysayers even more by scrolling, and in social media, and they're looking at a bunch of fake ass profiles of people who really don't have the success that they portray that they have, and a lot of bad individuals and mentors and people out there. And see, I just divorced myself from all of that, and I
Yeah.
made sure that I was surrounded by people who had the same dream that I did, that there was something better, that I was worthy, that I was capable, and by the way, so are they. I
Yes.
supported them, they supported me. And I also have to share with you that I did all of this without any college education, not one day of education in college. I barely, and I mean barely, graduated from high school. A, apparently they want you to show up. I was busy, I told them. So I just had that belief system from a very, very, very young age that I would be this type of a person, that I would be an entrepreneur, that I would have full control, that I would create a culture where people were attracted to work in an organization that I wanted to work in. Because I
Yeah.
didn't want to work in an organization that was toxic, that was a hierarchy, that was going to work every single day was miserable. People hate their lives Monday through Friday. I never wanted that. Now, I got lucky in that I chose the beauty industry because, as they say, hairdressers go to work every single day with the intention of having fun. So that's a good industry to belong to.
I love that. Yeah, it's absolutely amazing because you're bringing up a lot of the truest things that we all struggle with is finding the right people. The amount of times where people, it's not even that they need new people in their life, it's just they have to get rid of the ones they currently have. So for you, you've recruited so many people, you have 110 schools, you have all these employees. How do you find A players and how can someone who's maybe a solopreneur or maybe has a small business start to find those A players? Because I know that can be really challenging for them.
Okay, now as you talk, I told Jordan before we actually started recording that, and I'm not exaggerating, I have like 15 notes, 15 pages of notes here to prepare for this. That's how much I like to prepare and be ready. And also while you're talking, Jordan, I'm over here taking some notes too. So, so you asked that question about surrounding yourself with the right people. Well, there's the personal side of it. So, the personal side, everybody thinks that they have to have some large circle around them. And I don't believe that that's true. I have mentors that say, gosh, do you have one person? Right? Do you have
Yes.
one person in your life that believes in you no matter how many times you fall down? That person still has your back. Come on, get back up. You're going to do it. Okay, the next time it's going to work. Do you have one person like that?
Yeah.
I heard it once said that people who have abandoned their dreams will try to steal yours.
Really?
And
Wow.
we surround ourselves with a whole bunch of people who, again, they're not achieving what they want in life, and so they're pissed off, or they're offended, or they're threatened by your success. And so, shrink your circle. You do not need a large personal circle. When you're single, you can have a large circle, right?
Yeah.
You know a lot of people, but you decide that you're going to get married, or you're going to settle down with one person. You have to shrink your circle. And why is that? Well, because when you're single, you might be hanging around people who don't believe in a commitment. They don't
Yeah.
believe in monogamy. Okay, well then you have to divorce those people because marriage is hard. It's a lot of work, and so you have to make sure that the people who are in your life will support that commitment. When we're saying, "Oh my God, I'm going to kill this person," no, you're not. You're going to work this out. You'll figure it out. Here's the advice. You need those people, and so you shrink your circle. You have kids, you got to shrink your circle even more. I have a 13-year-old daughter, and you better believe I'm surrounded by people who will protect my daughter as much as I will protect my daughter. And so that meant when I became a dad, I had to shrink my circle even more. And so there's the personal side of that. And that personal side of it is something that I continuously work on a yearly basis. You kind of have to look at the people in your life, and it's like, okay, do they still fit in my life? And I don't mean this like it's a judgment thing. Like
Yeah.
like I'm 22 years clean off of drugs. The day that I decided to get clean, could I still hang out with the people that I had that drug lifestyle with? No. I had to divorce myself from those people. But it wasn't because I felt like I'm better than they are. I'm now judging them. It's because I love myself enough to stay away. And so
Yes.
you need to make sure that you're surrounded by the right people. I love, by the way, can you tell I've already had 3 cups of coffee, a protein drink, and I've been at the gym. I started at 4 o'clock in the morning, so that was 6 hours ago for me. So just good luck trying to get a word in. I love that quote from Oprah. Oprah says, "Everybody wants to ride in the limousine with you. The people
Yes.
that you need in your circle are those who will take the bus with you when the limousine breaks down." And
Yes.
man, our limousine breaks down a lot, right? Right, Jordan?
You're absolutely right. You're
Oh my
absolutely right.
God, the limousine is always breaking down. Okay, well, who's in your life? And that's your personal circle. But then to also answer your question on the other side of it, the business circle. Now that's a large circle for me. And that larger circle on the business side, you better believe is filled with mentors, people who lead the way for me. And I'm a product of my mentors. I mean,
Yeah.
I could quote you mentors that I was in their audience 30 years ago, and somebody in the audience raised their hand and answered a question. I could tell you exactly how that mentor answered the question and what I gained from that, and how
Yeah.
I changed how I approach business or my leadership style based on that answer 30 years ago. So I'm a product of my mentors. But then there's also attracting the people that are going to support you in your endeavors and your entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
One of my favorite movies is Field of Dreams. The main line, the main message from that movie is, if you build it, they will come.
Yes.
And how I translate that is, I want to build a company, I want to build an organization that people want to belong to.
And
If
are
it's
proud of.
toxic, I'm not going to attract the right people.
Yeah, so it all comes down from the leadership. And one of the things I think you brought up that's really empowering is just seeing all your success and putting all those values to mentors. So I actually had a mentor tell me one time that you should always have a hand up for you to learn something and then a hand down to help those up, because you start to realize that it's all a flow. We're all mentors and mentees in all different areas, and we're constantly learning, which is the most important part. So you mentioned about culture and leadership. How do you think about that, and how should entrepreneurs start to think about that? Because there's so many entrepreneurs I know who are like, I just got to get the next sale. I got to get the next sale. But the truth is, you got to build that leadership and that culture to attract the next sale and attract the people to actually retain with you.
There are some wonderful business and leadership mentors like John Maxwell, who
Of
will
course.
say that culture eats strategy for lunch. Culture eats systems for lunch. And while a lot of entrepreneurs will pride themselves in, oh, I got great strategy. Okay, but what's your culture? Well, I've got incredible systems on how we get the job done, on how we make the sale, on how we keep customer loyalty. Okay, that's great, but what's your culture? And the culture is the foundation for everything that you do. It's who you are. When two people come together, there is a culture. Automatically, when two people, so it's you and a customer, it's you and one team member, you come together. Now there's a culture, and you have to decide what that culture looks like and what that culture feels like, or it will be decided for you. And
Yeah.
oftentimes, the culture that can exist in some organizations and some companies is a culture that, I keep on using this word, that's toxic. It's a
Yeah.
culture that just doesn't feel good. You can walk into a restaurant and you walk in, and within 3 seconds, you're like, you know what? I don't like it. You haven't talked to the maitre d'. You don't know who the chef is. You haven't looked at the menu, but there's a feeling. This doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
And then the opposite is true as well, where you walk in and it's like, man, I just want to spend time here. Man,
Yeah.
this just feels good. I don't know what it is, but it just feels good. And maybe that's a way to define, to help people understand what I mean by a culture. Um, and it's not as if your company, whoever's listening to this, it's not as if you don't already have a culture and therefore you need to go create one. Again, it exists.
It's very, so I think you're bringing up a really good point about how unintentional or intentional we are in these moments. There's so many times in our life where, regardless of your family, you have a culture. You might not have intentionally built that culture, but there is a culture occurring. If you want to make that change, you have to start getting intentional with it and raise your head above the grass and start to realize, hey, there's a whole forest here. We get to dictate what this looks like.
You're exactly right, Jordan. Otherwise, it's happening by default, or out of desperation, or yeah, but it's not intentional, as you say. I love that word.
Yeah, it was funny. I was on a coaching call earlier today, and the client was like, "Wow, you have a great routine with your wife." And I'm like, "Oh," because I was telling him about my breakfast routine, and the breakfast routine is, we always say, "What are we grateful for? What are we looking forward to that day? And then what are three things we love about the other person?" And he's like, you already have that. Like, that's so lucky." And I'm like, "No." One day I woke up and was like, hey, we need to fix breakfast. Breakfast conversation's not going great. And then it's uncomfortable for a few weeks, and now it's a system. And I was trying to explain that because the truth is that we don't just change, we have to intentionally change and look for these changes to be showing up better. So I really enjoy your definition of a culture being two people coming together and thinking, how do they show up? How do they feel about this? And how does everyone enjoy this experience?
And by the way, that system, because you use that word as well, um, I believe that a system has to be written down. Because if it's not written down, you don't have a system. Meaning, if how you answer the phone at your store, at your business, is something that whoever answered the phone, they just make it up whatever they want to say on that day. Well, that's not a system. Because when that person answering the phone is in a really good mood, of course they're going to answer the phone the right way. Hey, it's a
Yes.
great day at Palm Mitchell the School. This is Wynn. How may I assist you? But what if I'm having a bad day? You know what? It's a screwed up day. What do you want? Right? So there
Absolutely.
there has to be a system, and everybody answers the phone the exact same way. Even on your worst day, we will all answer the phone the exact same way. But that system, if we're going to be able to duplicate it over and over, and I don't think that there's anybody listening to this who does not want to duplicate and expand their success and their volume and their sales, right? We want to expand and duplicate. The only way that it can be duplicated is it has to be written down. Everything has to be written down. That's the system. So, and I'm betting, I'm guessing that that system that you came up with for a wonderful breakfast conversation, you probably got that from some mentor, right? You said
Of
you heard
course.
some mentor talk about it, and so, see, you have influence. You have a great circle that you have surrounded yourself by, and they're not giving you advice that's destroying your marriage.
Absolutely. And the funny thing was, I vividly remember one of the podcast guests sharing that at dinner time they always do gratitude. And I was like, that's so cool. I want to do that. And then you start to introduce these different concepts. So, one of the big things for you is who's an entrepreneur and who isn't an entrepreneur. Because I know that can be a real challenge for people, especially in this day and age where everyone's, I'm an entrepreneur. But not everyone's supposed to be an entrepreneur. What do you think about that?
That's I just smile as you talk about that because it just happens all the time. Oh, I'm an entrepreneur, and I always ask, really, what does that mean? Or why are you an entrepreneur? I mean, tell me, what that means to you. Well, I'm an entrepreneur because I just want to be my own boss. I want to come and go as I want. I want to show up when I want to. I want to wear whatever I want. And I'm like, you didn't describe an entrepreneur. You just described a really bad employee. And I can guarantee you, you're either going to get fired or if you are your own business, you'll be out of business very, very soon. That's
Yeah.
not an entrepreneur. Um, so of course everybody wants to call the shots. They all want to be their own boss, so to speak. They don't want to have to live under somebody else's rules and guidelines, which by the way is really bad advice that you're giving to yourself. Because I don't believe that you can be a good leader if you're not a good follower. I am a really good follower, and I truly believe that the reason why I feel like I am a good leader, and I'm told that I'm a good leader, and I have people that have worked for me for 30, 40 years and thousands of people in my organization. I think that the reason why, or I know the reason why I am a good leader is because I was a really good follower. I let other brilliant people take the lead and I followed them. And I took orders from them. I took my lead from them. I learned from them. And by being a good follower, you better believe it made me a good leader. Maybe it's easier for people to understand that. It's the same analogy. I don't think you can be a good teacher if you're not a good student. You
Yes.
can't be a good parent if you're not a good son or daughter. You know what? I was an amazing son to my mom. I was
Yeah.
an incredible son to my parents, which I feel now makes me a really good dad. I'm a good
Yeah.
parent to my daughter. So, we have to play both sides. And I can't even remember what your question was. Was there a question? Because,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
mean, I do questions and then sometimes we free flow, so it's all good. But the funny thing is, when you talk about these different ideas of relationships, who's the boss, who's running things, the funny thing about entrepreneurs that you mentioned, every customer is the boss. everyone, they start to realize that, and that was something I learned from a mentor, because they start to realize that the customer's the boss. So now
Hmm.
instead of one boss, you have 1,000 bosses, which doesn't make the game any easier. But you start to realize that you appreciate those mindsets, and that's why the first time I even saw Win was him speaking at the Loyalty Brands conference, and he actually pulled me on stage because I didn't have a partner, and it was just this incredible energy that Win has. So where does that energy come from for you? Because I know there's so many people watching right now that go, Wynn's lucky. Wynn did this. Wynn's got this business. But like, how did you have the energy? 4 a.m. You've accomplished so much. Where does this come from?
Well, thank you for the compliment. And I'll tell people I'm 66 years old. Uh, again, with a 13-year-old daughter, so I became a dad later in life. And I will also preface this by saying that for me, this energy does not come naturally to me. I don't even mind sharing with you that for me, being happy does not come naturally to me. To some people, happiness does come naturally to them. To me, my whole life, even to this day, it never has. And by the way, that used to really piss me off because I used to think, okay, how many more seminars do I have to go to on self-esteem? Why can't I coast once in a while the way other people coast? And
Yeah.
guess what? I can't. I can't. That's who I am. That's how I'm built. I know that I have to work at energy and work at happiness every single day. And now I know exactly what it takes to be able to make that happen. I don't want this to be a drawn out answer, but yeah, I get up at 4 o'clock. You can go to the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning and the gym is packed. Is it
Yeah.
packed with a bunch of losers? No. No. It's packed in the conversations if you chose to have conversations with people at the gym, my gosh, talk about mentors, talk about ideas, talk about the things that you're going to learn and gain from those people, right? Because they're on that path. They're all on that journey. And so I get up at 4 o'clock because my daughter gets up at 6 o'clock. And I feel like I need a couple of hours before she gets up because it's my job as her dad when she gets up at 6 o'clock to make sure that she's choosing the kind of day that she wants to have.
Yeah.
99% of the time she wakes up, it's going to be a great day. But every once in a while, it's like, you know what, dad, today's going to suck. And it's my job as her dad to say, come on, sweetheart, we can turn this around. Right.
Yeah.
Well, how can I do that for her at 6 o'clock when she's waking up if I'm also trying to wake up at the same time? And so I need a good 2 hours on her. And I can
Yeah.
tell you exactly what I do at 4 a.m. and what I don't do. I don't look at my phone at 4 in the morning, because one bad email, one bad text at 4 in the morning could completely shift my entire day. And so I don't want to give that power away yet. Right.
Yeah.
So at 4 a.m., first thing that I do is I put on music. Right. I'm moved by music. And a lot of people will say the same thing. And I'm a DJ all day long. So what I listen to at 4 o'clock is different than what I listen to at 6 o'clock. When she gets up, 6 o'clock, of course, we're listening to, Taylor Swift at 6 in the morning. She's off to school, 7:30. I'm going to the gym. Now it's different music. I'm changing the music because music impacts me, right? It,
Yes.
it changes my moods and it changes my energy. Well,
Yeah.
whose job is that? It's my job.
Yeah.
I could get mad at my spouse for not getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning and putting on good music that I love, right? No, it's my job, my responsibility, right?
The
I got the coffee going. I light candles. I bet I light, I'm not exaggerating, probably 20 candles in the morning. I just love, again, the ambiance. I'm setting a mood. I'm setting a scene to get my energy going, to get me in the best mood possible before I then jump into work, right? I got the
Yes.
dogs going, the coffee's going. I'm just kind of puttering around the house, not really doing anything, but let me tell you something. From 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock, my juices are going, and those energy that the energy that's flowing with great ideas is just it's over the top. And five
Yeah.
o'clock is when I then say, okay, time to start looking at some business here. Time to look at some emails, some text messages, because I got businesses on the East Coast. It's now 3 hours later for them. They're waiting for some responses. At 6 o'clock, it's no phone zone. That's me and my daughter.
Yeah.
That's breakfast, that's conversations, that's Taylor Swift, and 7:30 is the gym. Anyway, Jordan, I could go on and on of exactly what the discipline looks like throughout my entire day for me to have the energy, for me to have the self-esteem, the confidence, and the happiness to do what I do.
But it's
Not by
it's
accident.
not by accident at all, which is the important thing. How many of us are waking up on purpose? How many of us are taking a step in the right direction? And that's why I wanted to have Win on, because he has such tangible things that you can take today. The candles don't really cost anything. The music doesn't cost anything. It's just a mindset, and it's how you want to show up in the world for the people that are around you. So it's so important. I really enjoy that. So what I do with all my guests is we go through the 5 pillars of Edwards Consulting. And we're going to
Right?
ask you today where you're at. I'm guessing they're kind of high just because you show up really well. So the first pillar is mental health. It's going to be mental health, physical health, community service, philanthropy, spirituality, and relationships. So we'll start off
Okay.
with mental health. On a 1 to 10, where are you at today?
I would say 8 or 9.
Okay, so you're
Now,
8 or 9.
yesterday, I probably would have said a 6.
Okay, a
You
6 or
know,
an 8 or 9. So why were you at an 8 or 9, or why were you at a 6? So for you, what allows you to be at that higher level and lower level? What causes that? Is it anything?
First of all, I learned to not beat myself up on the days when I'm only a 4, a 5, or a 6. Again, I years ago I had that belief system because I struggled with happiness for so many years. I truly believe that if I read enough books, if I listened to enough podcasts on happiness and self-esteem and confidence and entrepreneurship, that one day I would master all of this, right?
Yeah,
That I would never ever have to worry and struggle with confidence ever again. That one day all of that would go away. And that was, of course, the myth. And I'll have people that will ask me that question as well. And my response is always, well, first of all, welcome to the human race. Because everything's in a cycle, right? The
yes,
tide goes in, the tide goes out, planets revolve around the sun, the seasons change. Everything is in a cycle, including our mental health,
yes.
including our energy and our emotions. And so yesterday was a 6 for me. Today is an 8 or a 9. Tomorrow, who knows what, right? That now,
Yeah.
when I'm at a 4 or a 5 or a 6, that doesn't mean that I dive into that and embrace that, and some people do that. They when they wake up a little depressed, what do? They watch depressing movies all day.
And it double
They,
stacks, and then
they,
it
they
becomes more negative and more
I know
negative.
they turn on Jerry Springer. Watch they call friends to talk about how much their life sucks and get a whole bunch of their friends to agree with them.
It go
Uh-uh.
it goes one direction or the other direction. It's very interesting where you can spiral down one way or spiral up the other way, and it becomes quite interesting. Yeah,
I will say to cap off that question on mental health, I don't think that we ever graduate from that.
yeah,
Just like you're never going to graduate from doing whatever it takes to make sure that your marriage is strong. You can't just say, cool, we hit the 20-year mark. We don't have to worry about this anymore.
yeah,
No way. You never graduate. And so my mental health, this is something that I will use the word struggle. This is something that I can struggle with on occasion, but it absolutely, if I'm not struggling, I'm absolutely working on it every single day.
yeah.
Ask anybody who knows me, Jordan. I don't see violent movies. I don't. I don't watch negative reality shows. I have no idea what's going on with
So,
the Real
so
Housewives.
I appreciate you sharing this because there's a lot of people who say I'm low, I'm high, I'm whatever. But once we have the actionable steps of, hey, it's probably not best if you're in a marriage to watch Love Island or cheating in public or whatever these shows are, where it's, I literally told my wife, I'm like, we don't watch this, and she's like, why? And I'm like, the people around us affect us. If we're listening to people who are cheating, you're gonna start cheating, and it's not that you will or won't, but it's just why even teeter yourself around that? You want to be around the right people and like the good things. So you're absolutely right. So for physical health, how are you feeling on a 1 to 10 on your physical health?
Okay, so again, I'm 66. I'll tell you something, and I've always taken good care of myself, other than because some of your listeners, wait a minute, he was a drug addict 22 years ago. Yes, that's true. We can talk about that. Um, but for the most part, I've always taken really good care of myself in terms of the gym and I love sleep. I love sleep, everybody's like, well, duh. No, there's even now more and more the studies that are coming out. You need to sleep. Like Jordan, do you ever see those people like on social media? They're like, hey, everybody join my group. I'm going to stay up for 3 days. I'm like, you're promoting this? You're proud of this, right? There's nothing to be proud of in that moment.
Yeah.
We need sleep. We
Yeah.
need to sleep. And so I've always been really, really good at those things. And I'll tell you something, my 50s were really not that different than my 40s. Physically, my
Yeah.
60s are very, very different. So
What do you
it's,
mean by that?
just I can be at the gym 5 days a week and I'm lifting weights and doing an hour of cardio, and then I come home and throw out my back, putting on my socks. I mean, it's just like what the hell's going on here? So,
Yeah.
things change, which means okay, fine, things change. I could boo-hoo about it, right? I could, get all nasty about it and get a whole bunch of people to agree with me that, being in your 60s really sucks, but what's the point of that? So what I do is I
Sure.
pivot.
Yeah.
Isn't that part of your theme, to pivot, right?
Absolutely.
You
Yeah. My
adjust.
point,
And so
my
I'm
point, yeah, no, my point is here. I literally spoke to someone and he was 59 and he's like, I'm so young still. Like
Mhm.
that was such an interesting thing where young and old are just concepts and relative to time. So you can sit there and people probably think you have a very young energy with how much stuff you do running around, doing all this stuff. And you start to realize that age is but a number. Yes, your body starts to go down for sure, but you have a very young energy. Like you have that belief in the world that anything is possible. So I just want to give you those credits.
Thank you. But it comes with the work, because
Absolutely.
there are people who, oh yeah, I value that. I value, but your behavior doesn't match what you value. You
Yes.
say you value health and wellness, but again, you're eating a horrible diet. You're not getting enough sleep. You're staying up late at night, binge watching who knows what. You're
The
not
sim
moving your body, and so, I'm sorry, but you can value certain things. Obviously, the reason why you came up with that routine for breakfast was you value a beautiful, strong connection in your marriage. So you value that. Well, if you didn't implement this plan to
yeah.
improve in breakfast conversation, well, then your behavior does not match what you value. And
Yes.
so, I love that exercise where you split a piece of paper in half, and on one side you write your values, and next to that, in the next column, what's the behavior? What is your action on a daily basis, on a regular basis, to endorse, to support exactly what you value?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a brilliant tip because for anyone listening, what that basically means is to say if you value the gym or value a healthy body, then it would show up as the gym and it would show up as these different actions instead of us living. I woke up today because I stayed up late and I'm not really sure. And is it Friday? Like, can it please be Friday? It's none of that. It's this really stepping into your authentic self and being the best version of who you are. Now, one of the pillars that you excel at that I know a lot of people struggle with is the community service philanthropy. And you've actually implemented some of this into your business model as well with Generation G. How do you think about that?
Well, thanks for bringing that up. Again, I think maybe a lot of people, they'll say, when I'm successful, then I will do volunteer work. When I hit this benchmark financially, then I'll start choosing different charitable organizations and foundations that I will support. And then when they do make that decision, they attend one black tie fundraising cocktail party in December and then call it a day. Well, that's great in December, and the money that you raised for that local charity, every charity needs money, and so good for you. But what about January?
Yes.
And what about the food bank in February? And
Yeah.
what about mental health awareness month in May? And then what about, meaning it's an ongoing process. How I like to look at it. Let's say that as an entrepreneur, the owner and CEO of a big company, let's say that I have 10 things that I need to get done that day. 10 things that are on my to-do list for me to continue moving my company forward, doing my duties as the CEO. How I look at it is at least one of those things has to do with philanthropy. It can't
Really?
just be, I'm going to get these 10 things done. And if I have time left over, that's like saying I'll go to the gym whenever I'm in the mood.
Yeah.
You'll never go.
Yeah.
It's just part of how I do business that absolutely. And I had really good teachers and mentors years ago who taught me that. So I don't care if you're not even paying your bills yet because
Yeah.
your business is brand new. Okay, what's the philanthropy arm of your organization, of your company? What are you focused on? Because, Jordan, look at it like this. All of us are consumers. We
Yes.
consume oxygen, we consume trees, we consume water. When you're in business, you're consuming the paychecks of people in your community, your loyal customers who are coming in and they're paying you money for services and product. You are a consumer.
Yes.
We absolutely have to be contributors.
Yeah.
And that's what Generation G is all about. You mentioned Generation G. The G stands for generosity. And get this, statistically, 85% of consumers will switch from one brand to another, from one company to another, from one product to another product, based on whether or not that company is giving back to their communities locally, globally.
Wow.
Meaning, as a consumer, I have a choice. As a customer, I have a choice. Of course, we spend money with our head, right?
Yeah.
Meaning, okay, we consider the location. Is it a convenient location for me to go to that store?
Yeah.
Are they competitively priced? Right? Do they have good customer service? Right? So we spend money with our head, but we also spend money with our gut. Meaning, do
Yeah.
I like you? Do I
Yeah.
trust you?
Yeah.
And if I hear that you're a horrible boss and you treat your employees horribly, well, that doesn't make me feel good. I'd rather spend more money down the street, spend more money for the services, the product down the street. Why? Because I hear that boss treats their people good. I
Yes.
spend money with your company because even though maybe down the street they have better pizza, but I like your pizza. Why? Because I know that your entire team that works for you just did the cancer walk over the weekend. And that's
Yeah.
why I will come and buy my pizza from you because you give back. You make a difference. You're not just consuming my money, you're giving back to your community.
And it doesn't have to, yeah, it doesn't have to be the biggest thing, but it gets people involved in different ways. So then they're raising money and they're putting themselves in these different situations where it allows you to show up better for the community, but also for yourself. When you're in a place of service like that, people want to work with you. They want to be around you and they want to be a part of that. So I think that's super important.
Oh, Jordan, remember all that paper, notes that I
Yeah.
have? I've got statistics, literally statistics that show how much loyal team members are, right? Because they are taken care of, because you, as the boss, as the entrepreneur, give back to your community. I have statistics that prove you're going to attract a better team member, right? A more qualified team member because people want purpose. They don't show up to work just for a paycheck. They want to know that, am I making a difference? Yeah, you're paying me well, but are we doing anything of value here?
Yes.
I mean, am I just here to show up for a paycheck or, what's my why? What's my purpose of getting out of bed in the morning? Right?
Yes.
And there are people who have that in them. So they're
Yeah.
looking for a company that gives back. Yes, here are your benefits, here's your pay, here's the training that you need to perform your job. Oh, and by the way, as a company, we support that children's organization down the street. As a
Yeah.
company, once a month, we all volunteer at the food bank. As a company, as an organization, as a team, we're doing these things to give back. You're going to attract a better team member.
I,
Customers are more loyal, team members are more loyal.
yeah. And I love how you gave examples that are some are time, some are money, but a lot of them are kind of both.